Imagine walking into your local library, a place you've always known as a sanctuary of knowledge and exploration. But something has changed. Certain shelves seem emptier than before. Books that once challenged your thinking, expanded your worldview, or simply told stories that resonated with your own experiences have vanished. No explanation, no debate, they're just gone. This isn't a dystopian fiction. This is happening right now across North America. In 2025, we are witnessing an unprecedented assault on the freedom to read, the freedom to learn, and ultimately, the freedom to think for ourselves. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to present the facts about what's happening to our libraries, our schools, and our fundamental right to access information. Because the truth is, if we don't pay attention now, the next books to disappear might be the ones that matter most to you. The data is clear and deeply troubling. During National Library Week 2025, the American Library Association released findings showing that in 2024 alone, they tracked 821 attempts to censor library materials and services across the United States. These challenges targeted 2,052 unique titles. While this represents a decrease from the previous year's 1,247 attempts affecting 4,240 unique titles, it's important to understand the context. These numbers remain staggeringly higher than any time before 2020. What's changed isn't just the number of challenges, it's who is behind them. According to the ALA, 72% of demands to censor books now come from organized pressure groups and government entities, including elected officials, board members, and administrators. This marks a fundamental shift from the past, when most challenges came from individual parents concerned about specific books their children were reading. The situation in Canada, while less publicized, is equally concerning. According to the Canadian Library Challenges database maintained by Toronto Metropolitan University's Centre for Free Expression, 119 titles were challenged in Canadian libraries in 2024, with another 30 already reported in the first few months of 2025. And these are just the challenges that have been self-reported. The actual numbers are likely much higher. But what does a challenge actually mean? It's when someone demands that a book or resource be removed, restricted, or relabeled in a way that limits access. Sometimes these challenges fail, and the books remain. But increasingly, they succeed, resulting in books being removed entirely, placed in restricted sections, or labeled with prejudicial warnings that discourage readers. These aren't just statistics. These are real books, telling real stories, that real people are being prevented from reading. Let's be clear about what's really happening here. This isn't about protecting children, though that's often the claim. If it were, these challenges wouldn't extend to public libraries where adults should have unfettered access to legal materials. This is about control. Controlling what stories get told, whose voices get heard, and ultimately, how we think about the world. So which books are being targeted? In both the United States and Canada, the pattern is unmistakable. Books about racial justice, LGBTQ+ experiences, and sexual health education face the most challenges. PEN America, which has documented nearly 16,000 book bans in U.S. public schools since 2021, reports that about 45% of recent bans occurred in Florida and 36% in Iowa alone. Among the most challenged titles in North America are books like Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe, All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and Looking for Alaska by John Green. In many cases, these books are being removed not because of their literary merit or educational value, but because they make some people uncomfortable with the realities they portray. This isn't the first time we've seen book censorship in North America. During both World Wars, Canada's War Measures Act brought vast censorship, both to maintain morale and to suppress opposing political views. In 1937, Quebec's padlock law allowed prosecutors to arrest anyone advocating for communism in any format, effectively banning many publications. In the United States, the McCarthy era of the 1950s saw widespread banning of books deemed un-American. What we're seeing today hasn't reached those levels yet, but the parallels are disturbing. The current wave of censorship is the most extensive since that period, and it's growing more sophisticated in its methods. One of the most concerning developments is what's happening at the state level in the U.S. Utah passed a law stating that if a book is banned in 3 public school districts, the state will automatically place those books on a statewide ban list. This approach has already resulted in the forced removal of at least 14 books from all Utah public schools. South Carolina has implemented similar measures. Idaho passed a law in 2024 that allows parents to sue public libraries if complaints against materials aren't handled to their satisfaction. The result? Several libraries in the state have either closed their doors to anyone under 18 or blocked entire sections of their libraries to minors, rather than risk costly litigation. These aren't isolated incidents. They represent a strategic approach to systematically removing books from public access. And the trend is spreading. According to Book Riot, more states are planning to introduce similar legislation in 2025, potentially creating a patchwork of different censorship regimes across North America. There's another disturbing trend emerging: the use of technology to facilitate censorship. Programs like Bookmark ED On Shelf, which has spread across Texas schools, allow books to be scanned into a database that flags titles that have been banned elsewhere. This automated approach to censorship removes human judgment from the process and relies on algorithms and data sources that aren't transparent. What's particularly concerning is how these programs are replacing the professional judgment of librarians, trained experts who understand the nuances of collection development and the importance of having diverse materials available to all readers. While much attention has focused on the United States, Canada is not immune. According to BookNet Canada, interest in banned books among Canadian readers has surged significantly in recent years. Library loans of books marked as banned or controversial in publisher metadata increased by a staggering 690% from July 2020 to June 2023. The Canadian censorship approach tends to be quieter and more systemic. As noted in a March 2025 article in The Walrus, book banning in Canada is quiet, systemic, and more effective than ever. Rather than loud public campaigns, Canadian censorship often happens through bureaucratic processes like targeted weeding, removing books that contain controversial content under the guise of routine collection management. Whether loud or quiet, the patterns of censorship in both countries show striking similarities. Books by and about marginalized communities face the most challenges. Works that discuss sexuality, gender identity, or racial injustice are disproportionately targeted. And increasingly, these challenges are coming not from concerned individuals, but from organized groups with political agendas. It's worth noting the legal frameworks that should protect against censorship in both countries. In the United States, the First Amendment protects freedom of speech and, by extension, the right to access information. In Canada, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. Yet these protections are being tested. Court cases like Chamberlain versus Surrey School District in Canada and numerous ongoing lawsuits in the United States will shape how these rights are interpreted in the context of libraries. The outcomes will have profound implications for access to information for years to come. Let's be clear about what's at stake. When we talk about freedom to read, we're talking about something fundamental to democracy itself: the right of individuals to access information, form their own opinions, and participate meaningfully in public discourse. For adults, this means the freedom to choose what they read without government interference. While obscenity and certain limited categories of speech are not protected, the vast majority of books being targeted don't fall into these categories. They're simply works that some find objectionable due to the perspectives they present or the realities they depict. For young people, the situation is more nuanced but no less important. Parents have always had the right to guide their children's reading and make decisions about what's appropriate for their own family. What's different now is the attempt to make those decisions for all families. When a book is removed from a school library, it's not just unavailable to the child whose parent objected. It's unavailable to every child in that school, regardless of their family's values or beliefs. When a book is placed in a restricted section of a public library, it creates barriers for everyone, including adults and teens whose parents might want them to have access to that material. It's also important to understand who is most affected by these bans. When books featuring LGBTQ+ characters or addressing racism are removed, it's not just an abstract loss. It's a message to real people that their stories don't belong. For a teenager questioning their identity, or a child from a marginalized community, seeing themselves represented in literature can be a lifeline. A 2023 study by the Trevor Project found that LGBTQ+ youth who had access to books that reflected their identities reported significantly lower rates of depression and anxiety. When these books disappear from libraries, the consequences are real and measurable. Let's look at some specific examples of books that have faced challenges. In Canada, The Bluest Eye, by Toni Morrison, a novel about a young black girl's experiences with racism and abuse, has faced repeated challenges for its difficult content, despite its status as a literary classic. Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe, a memoir about the author's journey with gender identity, has become one of the most challenged books in North America. Often mischaracterized as pornographic, despite its educational and supportive message for young people experiencing similar journeys. 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult, a novel about a school shooting that examines complex issues of bullying, trauma, and violence, was one of the most banned books in the 2023-2024 school year according to PEN America. despite its thoughtful exploration of a critical social issue. These are not fringe publications, but works of serious literary and educational merit, written by acclaimed authors and published by respected presses. Their removal represents a significant loss to the cultural and intellectual landscape of our communities. But there is resistance. Organizations like the American Library Association's Unite Against Book Bans, PEN America, and the Canadian Library Association are fighting back. Librarians are standing up for intellectual freedom, often at great personal and professional risk. In some communities, grassroots movements have successfully reversed ban attempts by speaking out at school board and library board meetings. In some states and provinces, new legislation is being introduced to protect libraries and librarians. New Jersey recently joined California, Illinois, Maryland, Minnesota, and Washington in passing laws that aim to preserve access to diverse reading materials and protect librarians from legal liability for providing access to legal materials. There's an irony to censorship. It often increases interest in the very materials it seeks to suppress. BookNet Canada found that library loans of challenged titles increased by 690% over a 3-year period. The American Library Association has reported similar patterns in the U.S. When books are banned, many readers become more determined to find them. This phenomenon, sometimes called the Streisand effect, shows that attempts to suppress information often backfire. But we shouldn't rely on this effect to counter censorship. Many readers, particularly young people or those with limited resources, may not be able to access banned materials through alternative channels. So what does the future hold? The trends suggest that library censorship will continue to evolve. As traditional banning methods face legal challenges, we're likely to see more sophisticated approaches, like the use of automated filtering systems, changes to collection development policies, and legislative measures that create chilling effects without explicitly banning specific titles. But the future is not predetermined. The outcome depends on whether we, as citizens, stand up for the freedom to read and the essential role that libraries play in our democratic societies. This isn't about any single book. It's about whether we believe in the fundamental right of individuals to decide for themselves what they read, what they think, and what ideas they explore. It's about whether we trust each other with information, or whether we believe certain ideas are too dangerous to be freely available. Today it might be books about gender identity or racial justice that disappear from the shelves. Tomorrow it could be books about political dissent, religious diversity, or scientific theories that challenge the status quo. The principles at stake remain the same. The question is, what kind of society do we want to live in? One where a select few decide what ideas are acceptable for everyone, or one where we each have the freedom to explore the full range of human thought and experience. The freedom to read is inseparable from the freedom to think, and the freedom to think is the foundation of every other freedom we cherish. When books disappear from our libraries, we all lose something precious, whether we realize it or not. Today, someone else might be deciding which books you shouldn't have access to. Tomorrow, if we don't act, they might be deciding which books you can't access. The choice is yours. Will you speak up for silent shelves, or will you demand that the full chorus of human voices remains available to anyone who wishes to hear them? Your library, your community, and your right to read are worth defending. Because once we start letting others decide what we can and cannot read, we've already begun to surrender our most fundamental freedom, the freedom to think for ourselves. Thank you for watching. If you value the freedom to read, support your local libraries, attend board meetings, and speak out against censorship. Remember, the books that change your life might be the very ones someone else wants to ban. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, and subscribe to my channel. It really helps. This has been a presentation by The Pondering Poster. Thank you for watching.